Hi, and welcome to the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. I am your host, Kat Jepson, a canine nutritionist with an innate obsession with dogs and the natural ways in which we are driven to live because of them. So, let's get to it. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. I am your host, Kat Jepson, and today I am joined by Trish. Hi, Trish.
Hello, everyone.
Trish is the loving mama to Ronnie, who is a beautiful blue staffy. And he's a special boy, isn't he, Trish?
Oh, he's a prince.
And
My little prince.
Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about the conscious battle of trying to figure out what the right thing to do is. And that's in terms of the foods that we feed our pets. So, Trish, to kick off, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and Ronnie?
Well, I'm just a normal girl living in Billericay, Essex, and I got Ronnie. Oh, how old is he now? He's 5. He was 5 in November, and I got him as a puppy at 8 weeks old. And he's living his best life in Billericay, and he's my prince. And he is a spoiled dog, and I am one of them dog mums that gives him everything and goes without herself if needs be. So he's a proper spoiled boy.
So all the spare money goes on Ronnie.
100%. All my money goes on Ronnie. Some might argue.
Oh, I think we're all in that position, Trish. And you're not alone on that one.
No, thank God.
So what does your natural journey look like, and how did it start?
Well, Ronnie's a raw fed. He's on a raw diet at the moment, but it actually started in 2009, I want to say, when I had my old dog, Jerry, who was a staffy cross, and he was a rescue. And I got him when he was 16 weeks old, and he was undernourished, and he was just in a bit of a bad way. And I at that point fed him kibble because I was led to believe that was the right thing to do. It was better for his teeth. It was better than wet food. It was better than canned food. All the benefits of kibble were told to me by various people and by my vet, and I honestly didn't know any different at that point. So I genuinely thought that kibble was the right thing to feed. And I'll never forget the first meal I ever gave Jerry. I put it down, and in less than 10 seconds, it was gone. And about 20 minutes later, it was out. And it wasn't pleasant. He couldn't. And I thought, well, perhaps it's because he's on a different food. I don't know what he was eating before. Perhaps it's just because I've not had a chance to transition him onto food, or perhaps it's that. And then this went on for a bit, and I contacted the vet, and then I fed him chicken and rice. I was told to feed him chicken and rice, and that went through him as well. And I started to think, oh God, is this part of Jerry's issues? Has he got really bad digestive problems? And I was told to stick with the kibble, so I did. And we'd find one that worked for him, and he'd eat it. And he was always really food motivated, as most staffies or staffy crosses are. And he used to eat his food, and everything would be going really good. And then about 4 weeks in, sorry, I just lost you for a minute then.
Don't worry, it's fine.
It's usually Ronnie that knocks things over, but this time it was me. And then he would eat his food, and then about 4 weeks in, he'd just, out of the blue, he'd turn his nose up at it, wouldn't go near it, he'd go up to the bowl, sniff and walk away. And then I thought, what do I do? I persevere, because if he's hungry, he'll eat it. There was all of that. But my conscience got the better of me, so I would go and buy a different kibble, and then the same thing would happen again, and I'd buy a different kibble, to the point where I bought every kibble, I think, known to man at that time. I am not kidding you. I went through every single kibble on the market, trying to find one that Jerry would like and he would eat. And then,
so did you speak to your vet about this as well?
Yeah, and he said, he'll eat if he's hungry. He'll eat it. He's being fussy. And the vet said to me, which I thought at the time he might have had a point. He said, you're making him fussy because you're pandering to him. You're giving him, you're swapping and changing, and he's playing you. You need to stick to the food. If he's hungry, he'll eat it. The vet said to me, and but because he wasn't eating, and then I used to feel really guilty. I used to think, and I think because he was rescued, he was in such a bad way when I got him. I just wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to be healthy. I wanted him to eat. So I'd do anything I could to make that happen. Yeah. And then one day I went to an exhibition called Discover Dogs at the Excel Centre, and it's a bit like Crufts. So there was everything you could possibly think of for dogs on stalls. And I came across a raw company, and I thought, raw dog. I didn't think that was a thing. I genuinely at that point did not know that raw food was a thing. I thought it was kibble or wet, and that was it. I did not know that there was an alternative. And I stood on the stall and I was talking to the lady, and she was telling me about all the benefits of raw and how it's close to their natural diet. And I thought, I'm having some of that. That's where we're going. That's what me and Jerry are doing. So I bought some, and she gave it to me in like a cool bag, and she gave me a leaflet and said you can order online. And so Jerry had been on kibble for 2 years at this point. So we'd done the kibble round the houses for 2 years.
With his problems as well for 2 years.
And I just thought he's got an iffy belly. That's just the way he is. His belly turns on a sixpence. That's just one of his things. Yeah. So I just managed it as best I could. And he wasn't losing weight or anything. So we just carried on really with changing all the kibbles every 4 weeks. But when he went on to the raw, he absolutely loved his food. He loved it. And his coat was glossy and it was really working for us. But the downside to raw at that time was there wasn't as many raw manufacturers as there is today. There was only a few at this exhibition. Yeah. And I remember the packaging that it used to come in. It was in like big chub sort of sausage shape, vacuum packed, and you'd put it in your freezer. It'd come frozen, you put it in your freezer. And when I took it out to defrost it, it was like a murder scene. It would leak into my fridge. It would leak in the freezer. And I'm not ashamed to tell you that I just thought, I can't be dealing with this. This is horrific. I can't. Yeah. This is not convenient. I can't. I didn't have the foresight to think, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll defrost it in a bowl. Or no. I was just putting it straight in the fridge. It was like a car crash, and I just thought, I can't do it. I can't do this raw business. It can't be that good. There's not that much difference. And I went back to kibble. And I'm ashamed to say that now, because knowing what I know now, I went back to kibble because I genuinely thought that there wasn't much difference nutritionally. There couldn't be that much difference. He was eating, he was putting on weight, he was healthy enough. The vets would tell me he was in good shape whenever we took him for his checkups and all of that. Yeah. And so I thought, he's all right on kibble. His belly's a bit iffy, but he's all right. So I fed him raw for about 6 months and then swapped back. And then once raw became more popular and there was more raw manufacturers around, I kept going back to the raw, and I kept researching the raw, and I kept thinking, no, there's got to be a way that I can go back on raw. It was niggling at me. So eventually I just thought, right. And I found a manufacturer that sent it to you in airtight sort of Tupperware containers, and it was easy to store and it was easy to put it in the fridge, and it just worked for us. And I never looked back. And Jerry lived till he was 12, and he was a tiger brindle boy, and he had a lovely coat, and everybody used to say to me, his teeth are lovely, his coat is lovely. The vet always used to say to me, he's in really good shape, whatever you're doing, he's really good. And I genuinely put it down to the raw. Yeah. So then when I lost Jerry, as I'm sure most people do, or a lot of people do, I beat myself up about that, and I thought, is the reason why I've lost him, is it because he had a heart attack, my Jerry? And I thought, was that because at some point in his life I fed him food that I shouldn't have done? Is that, because I gave him the odd Saveloy, or I went back to kibble and I swapped his diets around all the time. Did I do something that contributed to him having a heart attack? Because you just don't know if there's something you could have done differently. So then when I got Ronnie, I said, right, we're feeding him raw from the off. And I got him at 8 weeks old because my husband Ian, he knew nothing about raw. He knew absolutely nothing about dog food. That was my, feeding the dog was down to me. he knows nothing about any of that. And to this day, he knows he's on a raw diet. He knows why, because I bore him about it. But he doesn't really know why we do it. He just does it because that's what we do. And when I got Ronnie, I got him from a breeder. We got him at 8 weeks, and he was on kibble as well. And I thought, right, okay, that's what the breeder's giving him. As soon as I got him home, I thought, right, we're swapping that. I'd already bought the raw food ready. Yeah. So I had it in my freezer because I knew the day I was picking him up. So Ronnie's been on raw from the off, and he's in brilliant. Again, whenever I take him to the vets for a checkup, or we get stopped in the street and people tell me what a lovely dog he is and what good shape he's in. I have, believe it or not though, Kat, I have had people say to me, he's too skinny, which is another thing that I think people battle with. And I've actually said to the vet before, is he too skinny? Is, because you've got that, like you've got for people, haven't you? It's the body index, and they should weigh, staffy should weigh between this and this. And you never know whether, Ronnie's a long-legged staffy, so he's not a little bullet type staffy. He's quite a big, he's a bigger boy. And people have said to me, he's too skinny. And again, I've worried about, am I feeding him enough? Is it, is he malnutrition? Is he too skinny? And I think it's not that he's too skinny. Well, I like to think it's not that he's too skinny. It's just that there's a lot of dogs that are overweight. He's not too skinny. He's right. It's that you're comparing it against dogs that perhaps
definitely.
And I've struggled with that as well.
The thing is as well, like people say, staffies should weigh between this and this, but I mean, who says? Like, every dog is different. Every dog it might be a staffy, but he's also an individual. And if his best condition is a little bit slighter than the normal staffy, then why is that an issue for anyone? You know what I mean? Like, as long as he's healthy.
It's not like he goes without. And the other thing that I'm always mindful of, and I'm sure this is the same for, I've only ever had staffies, so I can only talk about that, but staffies are so greedy. Ronnie would eat himself to death if I let him. So I'm always mindful of he's never full, and they never are full, are they? So he would, if I gave in to every time he wanted food or every time he was hungry, he would be overweight, and you're killing him with kindness then.
Yeah, you are. I mean, dogs are scavengers by nature, so they are. Every single time you have something to eat, they're going to want some. Like you say, most dogs would eat themselves to death. It's in their nature. It's in their genes. It's in their DNA. And I think, like you say, we have a tendency to feel guilty because you think they're starving, but they're just not. They're just opportunistic. They're like,
and even within that, even though I think I'm feeding him the best that I can with what I've got, I still struggle with, am I feeding him enough? Is he undernourished? Am I giving him enough? Has he got everything that he needs? It for me, and it's probably because I want to do the right thing as all dog mums do, but I really struggle with knowing whether I've done the right thing, whether I'm doing the right thing. And even when I think I've cracked it, then I wonder again whether what I'm doing is still right, because things move on in the dog world so much, don't they? Especially dog nutrition. Things change all the time. There's new brands come in, and I when I was feeding Jerry kibble, I said that I swapped and changed because I was always researching, is this the best kibble I can give him? Am I giving him the best that I've got? And for me, perversely now, raw has become the new kibble because there's so many different competitors on the market, and some are better than others. So I'm constant, and even when I think, even if if you find one, and I'm one of them, I do all my research, I look at the ingredients, I don't really know what I'm looking at. I think I do, but I don't. In truth, I'm not, and I'm no expert. So I think I know what I'm looking at, and I think I know. I look at the percentage of meat and the percentage of bone and all of that. But even then, you could get what worries me now, being the paranoid girl that I am, trying to do the right thing, is I find a brand and I think, they're really good. They're really good quality. They're really ethical. And then, but how do you know if in a year's time they're not trying to cut, because they're a business when all's said and done, and they're trying to cut corners or trying to increase their profit margins? How do I know that they're not decreasing the quality of their produce and I'm not giving Ronnie the best there is anymore?
I know.
How do you know?
Yeah, thing is, you're not going to know. And one of the problems with raw now as well, like I feed mine raw. Well, I feed them a mixture, mainly raw, sometimes cooked, depending on what's going on. But like, I exclusively, well, sometimes I do the minces. Like, I might get some like whole minced hair from, the dog's butcher or something like that. If I fancy just like a nice easy week, like for feeding, but most of the time I exclusively do DIY because a lot of the raw companies, they put like things like complete on the label where, it's like it's an 80-10-10. So depending on which raw model you feed in, that might be complete to some people. But I follow the ancestral model, which includes seafood and fruits and veggies. So it's not complete for me, but you might get pet parents who think, oh yeah, it's an 80-10-10, it's complete, that's all I need to feed my dog. But then there's another problem with it. It might claim to be a pheasant 80-10-10, but it's got pheasant meat and bone, but then it's got beef organs in it. But it doesn't specify that it's beef organ. It just says liver and lungs, which is and then another problem because it's 10%
it just
liver
says
and
offal,
lungs,
doesn't it? It just says offal. What offal? And that's what I struggle with. What you've got the same manufacturer that does 80-10-10, and a lot of people say 80-10-10 is what they need, and then you've got 80-10-10 and they do complete. Well, what's the difference? How do you know that you're doing the right thing?
Exactly.
How do you know what one you should be choosing? So then I've started looking at the ingredients, and I hope and I think I know what I'm looking at, but I don't really, and it's really confusing. And I'm in a constant battle with myself am I doing the right thing? And I'm constantly looking at different raw manufacturers and ingredients. I drive myself mad with it, Kat. I drive myself mad. I'm constantly, if I'm not looking at, no, I'm not watching the telly. If I'm on the internet or on my phone, 9 times out of 10, I'm looking at dog butchers or online places that sell dog food to try to see what's out there, and is there something better than I'm currently feeding?
It's
I'm
so
constantly
frustrating
doing it.
though, isn't it? I know, but it's so hard because obviously you're literally sat there fretting about whether, I mean, you've got Ronnie on raw. He's been eating raw all his life, so he's getting the most species appropriate diet, and obviously he is in good health because you can see it, and you still sat there bullying yourself about your decisions because like even the raw and natural feeding world has just become so barbaric in it's jumped on the bandwagon with marketing ploys, and then you get the high quality brands who are really trying to do their bit and they're trying to be sustainable and they're getting high quality meats, it's organic, it's grass fed, and they're really clear and transparent about what they put on the labels and where the food comes from. And then obviously, like with everything, you get the lower end of the scale who literally just kind of like just bosh it all together, and they say that it's 10% bone, but when you feed it, your dog's poop comes out and it's like pure chalk, so you know it's not just 10% bone because your dog wouldn't react in that way if it was. So it's kind of like, you know, you think you go off the label, which is what you do for dry and wet foods as well, which is a whole different kettle of fish. And you think you're doing the right thing, but then the circumstances tell you otherwise. And then you think, oh, what am I supposed to do then? You're just like screaming out, asking for how am I supposed to navigate this situation, which is, you know, it should be as simple as raw meaty bones, organ meats, you know, bit of fish or whatever. And now it's just like one big kerfuffle.
It is. And I think as well, everybody's got a different opinion, haven't they? So I've looked on because then I've started thinking, I started getting into right, I'm going to do it myself. How difficult is it to do it myself? How difficult is it to do it fresh? Because at least then I know what he's having. And then that's a minefield because I think, what do I know the proportion of stuff he's supposed to have? Do I know, does he need, you know, just meat and bone for some of the time and fruit and veg for some of the time? Or does he need fruit and veg all of the time? Does he need oily fish all of the time? Should it go in every meal? And then I've overwhelmed myself, so then I go back to the pre-made raw because I think, well, at least they know more than I do. So again, you know, and then there's the whole issue of treats. That's a whole different ball game again in terms of what's healthy treats. What treats should he have? Should it just be you know, meaty bones, or should it be dried treats that are natural? And are they natural enough? Or, you know,
and how do you know?
How do you know? And it's trusting. How do you trust what you're told? And how do you know the difference? And, you know, I am one of them that when Christmas comes, as I said at the beginning, he's a spoiled boy. So I am one of them dog mums that he has Christmas presents and birthday cakes that are for dogs and all of them things. We make a proper big fuss of Ron all the time. You know, as many people say, you know, we just exist with Ron. This is Ron's house and it's Ron's world, and we all just move around him. So you know, when other people buy, because other people have jumped on this bandwagon with me, so a lot of my friends buy Ronnie Christmas presents and they buy Ronnie birthday presents.
Oh, do they?
I haven't got kids, so Ronnie is my boy. Yeah. So they jump on that, and but sometimes they buy him things, and I think, and I sort of shudder a little bit. And think, oh my God.
You have to sort of like put on the grateful face, but then think, right, who am I going to give that to?
And then I think, I can't give it away. If it's that bad, I can't give it away. And sometimes I think, oh, sod it, he can have it. It's only once. And then I think, oh no, have I undone all the work that I'm doing?
You just conflict. You have this conflict in your mind, don't you? Like, oh, it's Christmas, you know, we deserve a treat. But it's like, yeah, but does it really?
does
That
it?
kind of treat? I'd sooner give him a fresh piece of cooked turkey off my dinner plate, you know, as a treat rather than.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, and I've done that. And I think last Christmas, it wasn't just Christmas just gone, it was the Christmas before. I thought, oh, as a treat, I'll give him a Christmas dinner that I cooked. I didn't put any gravy on it, so it was cooked turkey, and it was a little tiny bit of potato, and it was veg and the Brussels sprouts. Cat, never again. And I know there is a school of thought that says Brussels sprouts are all right for dogs and they're healthy. Never. All I'm going to say is never again. So it was like a cart. If I could have walked, well, let me just say, I was in bed and I knew something. The gas, it woke me and Ian up. And if we would have been in a cartoon, the air would have been green. It was like that. It was absolutely horrific. Yeah, and I thought, did I give him too many? I just don't know whether they just didn't agree with it.
Just because he's not used to it. That's what it is, because he's not used to it. That's
so
all.
I've not given him a Brussels sprout since. And
they are really good for them, though.
But yeah, and my new obsession is mushrooms. Is mushrooms,
good.
And they're good for. I know that they're good for them, but again, I've read on the internet, and some people say you cook them. You've got to cook them. Some people say no, you don't. You don't have to cook them. And I just think, oh God, do you cook them? Do you not cook them? So I've not given them to him because I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, to be fair, I would cook them. I would cook them slightly, just because they can be tough for them to break down unless you're blending them up.
Right.
So I would slightly cook them. And if you get confused about which ones you can feed, if you can eat it, so can they.
It's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the internet is a blessing and a curse, isn't it? Because you look it up and there's so much information on it that it just swivels my brain, and then I overwhelm myself, and I think, I'm just going to stick doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, because you're then sat there you're sat there in a frenzy, and it comes from this paranoia of something happening to them, doesn't it? You know, the anxiety, we spoke about it on the podcast before, the anxiety of losing your pet or your pet becoming ill is like the thing that does send you down this path of, you know, exploration. And it's sort of like, it should be, preparing food for Ron should be such an enjoyable experience for you, and it causes so much stress, but it's the same for lots of us, you know, especially if we've got different health issues to navigate. And it's tough because there are so many people in the canine nutrition industry, and even the companies, you know, every business needs marketing. If you haven't got marketing, you don't have a business. And basically, people want their food to seem like it's the best. And why wouldn't they? They're trying to sell it to people. So, like, even though, you know, from the outside, you look at all these brands and they all claim to be the best thing. So how are you actually supposed to know when, you know, all you're going off is what they tell you? So it's just so tough for pet parents to navigate at the minute. And I mean, even on packs of kibble, you get packs of kibble that say minimally processed on the front of the packet. But if a food is kibble, it's been cooked a number of times, and it is a highly processed food because it is a small brown cooked biscuit. So they're putting on the front of the packet minimally processed, which is a complete lie, because in order to get a kibble, you have to cook the ingredients several times and then squeeze it through big grids, which makes the little kibble shapes, and then like cook it again so it stays in shape. And it's like, but you're saying
it's the nutrition in that.
Yeah,
so it's that many times. Yeah,
but they're saying on the packet it's minimally processed. So a consumer's going into the pet shop and picking up, and it's like, oh, this one's good. It says minimally processed. We should be feeding foods that aren't as processed. But really, it's just the same thing.
And I was that person, and it'd say, you know, 90. What the one that really got me in the kibble world is it'd say like 80% meat, and I feel that's good. But when you actually read the back, it's not at all. It might be, you don't know how much of that is fresh meat and how much of it is like chicken meal, and what even is that, you know? And it'll say like vet approved, and it'll say, you know, we've got our own in-house nutritionist, and so you trust it, don't you? And it is the same with, I mean, you know, I've said I'm on the internet constantly looking at all the raw places where you can get the mince and where you can get raw meaty bones and all of that. And And the one that confuses me in raw is you get like 50% bone, chicken mince, 50% bone. And I think, is that, I thought it was, 20% at most, 10%. I mean, and yet they sell chicken mince that's got 50% bone. So I'm thinking, is that right? Is it not right? Is that, if I was to feed him that, what would happen? Is that too much bone?
Yeah. Oh, this is where you kind of like, this is where you need to know the differences between the different bone percentages. So if you were feeding it DIY and you had, like, say a chicken neck is 30% bone and a duck neck is 50% bone, then because each of the raw meaty bones have got a different percentage of bone and meat, so you could have a mince that was 50% bone, but then obviously you'd have to feed like a different amount of muscle meat to counteract the bone, if that makes sense. And this is where it gets confusing, because like obviously the raw food companies, they don't have to tell you how to build your bowl, they just kind of like sell you the stuff. But there's loads of people out there who are just sort of like, if they think, they need to put 10% bone in the diet, if that mince has got bone in it, they'll just sort of like weigh out it with the bone and include the meat in the weight, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They won't account for the meat in that as well. So this is where, pet parents have to be careful and make sure they do know what they're doing if they're doing DIY, because it is really easy to get it wrong if you don't.
And
actually.
That's what puts people off doing it. And yet I still think that, my new school of thought is, if I do it myself, I'm going to at least know what I'm giving him, because I don't know what the quality. I'm only trusting, as I said, the raw manufacturers and the new kibble manufacturers. I'm trusting what they're telling me, but I don't actually know if it's right. And I don't know if it's the right thing for him. So I'm starting to move into, I'm getting brave. I've started to put, raw egg on the top and a little bit of raw veg. So I'm adding, but I'm doing it slowly, because I'm thinking I still don't know whether I'm giving, because he's got a ready-made raw, if you like. I'm thinking, well, has he already got? So if it's complete and it's got fruit and vegetables in it and berries, if I then put a bit of broccoli on the top, am I giving him too much of the veg? So I'm only doing it small quantities.
Another thing is though as well, like some of these meals that they'll say complete on the front, and it'll be a raw food, it'll be a ready-made raw, but then it's sort of like 70% meat and 30% veg, and it's like, really, that's complete. Which raw feeding model is that?
But you go for complete, don't you? If you don't know, you go for complete, because you trust that is a complete balanced meal.
Yeah, but you see, this is where the problem is. Like, the pet food industry is not regulated. Like, there's nobody checking these labels, there's nobody checking these companies, and there's nobody sort of saying, right, no, you can't label that as complete. I mean, they have people who are in place to oversee such things, but pet food companies have to self-regulate themselves, and they have to basically declare that they have done everything that's on the checklist to say, we've done everything, we're going to label this as complete. But there's nobody actually enforcing the rules, and there's no pet food companies being held accountable if they are selling something which doesn't actually, meet what it says on the packet. I mean, like, there's a study that Dr. Connie Brady's been talking about recently, where I think it's 60% of kibbles in the UK that were tested, which have complete and balanced on their label, aren't actually complete and balanced to the AFCO standards when they've been tested. But on the packet, it says they are. So all these consumers are going out and buying these kibbles because they think it's a complete and balanced meal for their dog, when in reality, it's not. It doesn't contain all the essential nutrients that the dog needs. And that's probably the main reason why they buy it, because it's complete and balanced. And they think that they don't have to worry about adding anything else to the bowl because it's all in this packet, when actually, no, it's not. So this is one of the problems.
The other thing that I've wrestled with, is another subject completely, is supplements. Do you give supplements? Do you have to give supplements if it's complete? Or should that not mean that they've got everything they need? And if I do give supplements, what ones should he have and when? And should he have them every day, or should I swap them? And and that's a minefield as well, isn't it? And I read a study recently about salmon oil, and everybody's been led to believe I believe that you should have, if you're going to do your raw and your ready made or your DIY, you should put your fish in yourself, and that's where they'd get their fish from. But there are people, and you see it on Instagram, don't you, where people are doing their bowls and they're squirting a couple of squirts of salmon oil in. And I read something, and I've done that. I've been that person that squirted salmon oil in because I've wanted to make sure that he's got it. And then I read a study that said that, I don't know if it was 60% of salmon oils, when they did a test of the quality of them, they'd gone rancid because they'd been on the shelf for so long. And so when you get a bottle of salmon oil, if that's what you choose to do, you don't know what the quality of that is either.
No, and I mean most salmon oils are rancid before they're even bottled up because it's, you know, it's really sensitive to oxygen and oxidation, and it's just one of those things that if you are going to feed fish oil to your pets, you need to make sure you get it from a really, really, you know, good quality company who have so much transparency.
But then how do you know what that is? Because you're only going on what they're saying, aren't you?
Yeah, and if you bought it in a bottle which has a lid that screws off, every time you take that lid off, the thing is, a good quality salmon oil shouldn't smell like fish. It shouldn't smell like fish. So if it does, then it's rancid, and rancid fats cause, you know, they wreak havoc inside your dog's body. So you might be, loads of people are doing it, loads, just banging the salmon oil in the bowl and thinking they're doing the best for the pet when it's not.
They're not.
Actually. You know, it might even be causing more damage than, you know, what you would have been doing it with leaving it out of the bowl in the first place. And that is one of the things that annoys me. It's like companies who aren't truly passionate about dogs and their health and improving their lifespan and, you know, reducing disease and everything like that. They're just trying to find a way to make money, and they're exploiting the pet owners because they know people love their dogs with all their life, and they'll do anything if it means they'll get an extra even week to spend with their dog. They're just exploiting that fear, and they're creating these products, and they're basically saying, this is going to save your dog and make it live longer. And, you know, it's not. And this is why it annoys me so much that I always try to advise people, don't just shop for supplements that are designed for dogs. If you do, make sure you've researched the company. Most of the time, you can find whole foods available in the human market in fresh form, and you can feed them to your dog and still get the same benefits. Like for joints and things like that, you can use turmeric. Turmeric has, it's the most researched superfood like in the world. Guarantee you will find a study with a link to turmeric for, you know, like there's cancer, there's joints, inflammation, everything. You can use it, the golden paste, for your dogs. It really does work. You know, that's one example. And then obviously with the fish, the salmon oil, like you say, you are better to just feed the whole fish, like small oily fish, like sprats, sardines. Sardines are all wild because there are that many of them that, you know, you don't have to worry about them being farmed and being low quality because they're all just caught in these massive nets out in the ocean and everything like that. So, you know, you can get them in the supermarket in a tin. You can buy them from raw food companies.
As long as they're in spring water.
Spring water, And it's fine if you feed them cooked, if that's what works for you. That's fine. You can buy a kilo bag of sardines from a raw food supplier for $5.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in the tin, I think it's 90 grams when they're drained? 90 grams of cooked fish when they're drained for like, well, I think it's 50p. So
it's stuffing, isn't it? Pennies. Yeah.
They're cheap sardines, aren't they? Because they leave all the skin on and the bones and everything. But this is what annoys me. Like, they find a hole in the market and they find a fear in the pet parent. And
I'm that person. I am that. The marketing companies, I'm their dream, because I walk in, they can, they'll tell me this is gonna make Ronnie live, 2-3 years. But I'm all over it because
it's not fair, is it?
Don't you?
You want it to be true.
I know I'm not on my own. I know that, and but I think the struggle now, and I think the struggle is real, is that, like I say, you think you've cracked it, and I have to just remind myself whenever I get overwhelmed about it, because it is my passion, as you've probably gathered. I have to remind myself that even if I think I'm doing the right thing and I find that actually there is something better, I'm still doing a lot better than a lot of dogs. Ronnie's still got, he's been on raw since he was 8 weeks old. So even with all that said, I've got to stop. I've got to get off the treadmill and stop beating myself up about it and stop driving myself mad.
You need to stop having so many conversations with yourself. But I mean, it's hard. It's hard to do because at the end of the day, that fear is still there. You just want him to live forever, don't you? So no, it's completely natural. And trust me, you are not alone with that. I mean, I have moments like that, you know, all the time. And I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this podcast will have these conversations with themselves, especially like when they're talking about trying new foods and things, because another thing is people like the fear of doing things wrong is also like really made a big fuss about as well, isn't it? So you've got you can buy all the foods and put them in the bowl and, you know, basically just hope for the best, am I doing it right? But then there's the people that say, you know, don't do this, don't do too much of this. And then you just think, how am I supposed to figure out where the balance is in the middle?
Well, you doubt yourself, don't you? You think you've got it, and then somebody will say something, because everyone's got an opinion on it these days, it feels like.
Yeah.
And you just doubt yourself. And I think for me, what I'm looking for is that one version of the truth, that one, so I can think, right, I'm going to follow this. I'm going to follow this plan. I'm going to do this, because in my heart of hearts, I know it's the right thing to do, or, you know, I've got to trust that. You know?
I think for me, I mean, I followed, well, I basically did an 80-10-10 for the first few years. I did 80-10-10s with a few like additions on the top, like veggies, eggs, fish. I've done salmon oil before. I have. And then for me, it was Barney started having really bad problems with like environmental allergies and sensitivities, and the 80-10-10s, I just couldn't trust what was in the mix. Like it was the issue with like it's saying it was a single protein, but the liver was from a different animal, like beef. Like you can't have beef or chicken, and everything's got beef and chicken in it. All the completes have got beef and chicken in it because obviously they're the cheapest, so the companies use them to fill it out. Or, you know, some of the mixes have a lot of heart meat in because that's cheap, or they have a lot of tripe in, which is no good for a dog with allergies or sensitivities because of the histamine. So there's all these different reasons. And so, but I did that for years because I couldn't figure out which model I wanted to follow, because I was like you. I was like confused. There was that much information out there. I was like, right, do you know, I don't know which one I want to do. I don't know which one's for the best. And then through doing like studies and stuff like that, I learned, like, now I made my choice to follow the ancestral diet model, because looking at all the different types of raw feeding, that is the one that feels right in my gut. You know what I mean? To me, it falls in line with my own food philosophy. I agree with the whole concept of feeding fish for the omega-3s, because quality of the meat these days is so low that the omega-6 is higher than it would have been if it was in its natural form. So you use the fish to counteract that. And then obviously dogs get loads of human diseases which they shouldn't be getting, and obviously the phytonutrients in vegetables help your body build the immune system and fight against disease. So that's why I like the veggies in there. So I really kind of fell in love with this model, and I have to say, since I've been following this model and basing raw and cooked diets around it, it's the same for both. Obviously you just don't cook the bone in the cooked, you use a bone replacement. But I have to say that it has been such a smoother process for me, and that is basically what I base all my principles off now. So I know for a fact that when you do make your decision, you may find a little bit of peace. It's just how, you know, you need to kind of just decide what your fresh food philosophy is. And if you like it, and if you like it, then go with it. Like, you know, if it gives you a good feeling, or do you get a good feeling about loads of stuff? Is that why you get confused?
Well, because I'm that marketing dream where I look and think, oh, you know, this looks good, that, and I'm forever looking at ingredients. And I think, you know, that's another one, you know, as we've spoke before about my sister's little puppy Bo, who has got allergies, and we're in the process at the moment of trying to work out what it is that's triggering those allergies, and that's a long process, and you just want to fix it overnight, don't you? You want to go, right, it's that, and it's not as simple as that. And so we're doing looking at the single proteins, and exactly as you said, you think it's single protein, and then when you look, it actually isn't. And you think, well, where do we go? What are we doing?
It's so annoying.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me, I'm not going to say it makes me angry, because I don't tend to get angry because it's not good for you, but it annoys me because I think it's so unfair.
It's misleading, isn't it? It's misleading to people that are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people, these companies don't tell you exactly how to feed it. They don't say this. Some of them might say this is a complimentary pet feed. Half people don't even know what that means. They're like, what do you mean a complimentary pet feed? What's that?
Yeah, what is it complimentary with? That's the thing. You do see that a lot, don't you? So what you mean, what that means, what should it go with? They don't tell you that. And and it's like some of the well-known raw brands that you've seen, when you look at, they say, don't they, free flow, 100% free flow, free flowing beef or whatever. And when you look at the bone content, you think, well, I don't know if that, that is it. What I thought was a good quality, it actually isn't, or is it?
Yeah.
And then you've got boneless, haven't you? And you think, oh my god, I don't know what to do for and then you should be swapping your proteins around. And you just, in the end, it's easier. And I think that's part of my problem, is it's easier to just go, I'm going to trust a company to do it for me.
Yeah.
But I keep coming back to that niggle that is, but how much do I trust them? Because I don't trust no one.
No. I think
so I've got to trust myself firstly.
When it's to do with your pet, though, you don't trust anyone, do you? You're always conscious about letting your guard down and things. But another thing with the completes as well is that, some dogs might think that they've developed an intolerance to a certain protein if they've been eating completes, but it might not be the protein. It might be something like, obviously the completes have like a bit of vegetable, probably some like spirulina, a bit of fish, or chia seeds. It could be the chia seeds.
Could be that
it could be the small stuff. Just because it's not the majority of the meal doesn't mean it's not causing a problem on the inside, So, and I think a lot of people probably say, well, you can't have that because it's chicken. But if you actually tried an organic chicken, or just a plain chicken without the added bits in, then might be okay. Which is another thing, because I think some people see it as a complete meal, but a lot of people probably don't even read what's in the back.
Well, they don't, and I've been guilty of that before. When I first started my raw journey, I thought it wasn't, you didn't really get complete then, it was all 80-10-10, so I thought that was all it was. I thought 80-10-10 was it.
But if you follow the prey model, that is complete.
That is it. Yeah. And then that was what I came across. And then when I saw complete, I thought, oh, that's got to be better, because clearly what I was doing before wasn't complete. And because I didn't really read the back. I thought, well, they're telling me it's complete, and they know what they're talking about, and I'm just I'm winging it, to be honest. And it's just that, now, as I say, it is an obsession for me, and it is one that I'm glad to have. But I'm at the point now where I've got to get off, and I've got to go, right.
You've got to get off the train.
Yeah, this is what I'm going with. I've done good for 5 years. He's been on Raw. He's done, that's a damn sight better than a lot of other people. So, but I'm at the point now, I've got to go, right, this is the model I'm going to follow. This is what I'm going to do, because it's right for Ronnie and it's right for me, and that's where we're going. And I've just got to stop. I've got to stop looking. I've got to trust.
Do you know what though? What are you going to do with all your time? What are you going to do?
I'll be making up my bowls. I'll be back doing for Ron.
Next time you post it on Instagram, it'll be all these fancy,
I'll be
laid out meals with the swirls and the flowers. That'll be where you're going next.
No, it'll be a bowl with an egg on the top. But it'll be homemade. That's the plan.
Yeah, good. So, what do you think is the best thing about your turbulent journey?
Believe it or not, even though I've confused myself, it's the amount of stuff that I've picked up along the way, and how sort of invested I am in it, and how passionate I am in it.
Yeah, because you can tell you're passionate about it just simply because of how many questions you ask yourself. That shows that you are clearly thinking about every single angle and aspect of the decisions that you make for Ronnie. It shines through. And
I've got people that follow me on Instagram that I've never met before, that have said to me, Ronnie looks really healthy and really well. What do you feed him? And I've told them, and I've tried to help them. And there's been people that have fed kibble that have stopped feeding kibble and gone on to raw because Ronnie's on raw, and that's the biggest compliment anyone could ever pay. I don't know what raw they're feeding them. I don't get into it because I'm not qualified to get involved in that. I can just say what I do. But if one person's gone off of kibble because of something that I've said, or or the way that Ronnie looks and how healthy he is, then I'll take that as a win, you know, and I'm really passionate about that. So I think that's my biggest win. I think through this whole journey is the fact that I've managed to help people get off of kibble and even get them thinking about what they're putting into their dogs.
Yeah.
And if I can do that just for a couple of people, then I'll have that all day long.
You've made changes, haven't you? You've made an impact in the world, definitely. Not just to Ronnie, to the people around you as well. Yeah, that'll do for me. So what do you think, if there, you know, well, is there anything you would say to other pet parents who might be struggling with the conscious battle of trying to figure out what is the right thing to do? What advice would you give them?
I'd say don't do what I did. Just trust yourself and do. if you think you're doing the best you can with what you've got, then go with it. Because if you're feeding raw, you're doing the right thing and you're doing better than you would be on kibble. So don't beat yourself up about it. Just do a little bit of research, 100%, because you've got to do that. But don't drive yourself mad, and do what I'm going to try to do, and decide what it is you want to do and stick to it. Don't unless you've got loads of time on your hands and you are a saddo like me, don't go down the rabbit hole, because you are, you know, trust yourself, trust that you're doing the best you can with what you've got, and don't beat yourself up about it. You know, I do, despite everything that I've said, there are times that I'll give Ronnie things that he shouldn't have still, and there are times that I just go, oh, it's all right, you know, and it's, you know, I've got a brilliant dog walker and her son because I've got a thing about socializing Ronnie, because he's a staffy, and so I've been really big on getting him socialized from a tiny age to make sure that he's all right round dogs. He's a bit, you know, he's an anxious boy, so he goes and he loves going on his group walks. He absolutely loves it. But she boards Ronnie for me when I go on holiday, and when I go on holiday and Ronnie stays with her, we go back to kibble, but we go back to a freeze dried. So I go with the best kibble I've got, because I don't want to encroach on her freezer space or get her making food, and because I don't want to, you know, she's doing me enough of a favour as it is, and it settles my soul that Ronnie's with her. I'd never put him in kennels, so she is a godsend. So whatever works for her, I swallow it for that week or two, and it doesn't sit right with me in truth, but I have to go, look, it's only for 10 days or a week or 2 weeks tops, and then we'll go back to what we were doing before. The world's not going to stop turning because he's at a freeze dried good quality, because I always make sure it's the best quality I can find, and I'm doing my research before. So, but the fact that if he's at kibble for 2 weeks, a freeze dried the best quality, you know, it's not going to kill him because he's done it for 2 weeks, and I just have to remind myself of that, and then we'll get back on it when I'm back, and that's all right. And it, you know, it doesn't sit right with me, but it is what it is, and you've got to do what's right for not only obviously firstly for your dog, but there's going to be times when there's times when raw just doesn't work, isn't there, because you're away or you haven't got the freezer space. So then what do you do? And as long as you're doing the best you can with what you got, that's enough, you know. I think that's what I would say mostly. You know, that is what I'd say.
I think that's important. That is definitely important, because like you say, obviously you do a lot of beating yourself up, and that probably, you know, removes some of the joy out of preparing Ronnie's meals. You know, it should be an enjoyable experience. It should be a time for you to bond. You know, you're preparing the meal, you get excited, you're like, oh, Ronnie, look what I've got for you today, you know, and it's like, should be like that. So I'm really looking forward to you making your choice and jumping off this conscious battle train, and, you know, stepping into the future of your no fuss fresh feeding.
And I'm starting it, Kat. We're doing it together. You said that we're going to work together and do it, and I really want, you know, I'm lucky because Ronnie loves his food, and he, you know, he does that little cute spin when I put the bowl down, and he does a little tap dance and that, so he loves the food he's getting. I just want to make sure that
for you
that I'm giving him the best I can, and that I want to enjoy making his food, and I think I'll get a bit like, you know, the British Bake Off, innit? I want to be like that. As passionate as people are about making cakes, I want to be like that about making Ronnie's bowls, where I make it and I'm really pleased with it when I put it down.
No, definitely. I completely understand that. I completely understand it. And don't worry, we will get there.
Brilliant.
So, Trish, if any of our beautiful listeners want to find you and have a look at the beautiful Ronnie doesn't actually have his own Instagram, does he? But you do. So
he doesn't.
Oh no.
He doesn't, because he won't let me take photos. Taking photos of Ronnie is a mission in itself. So it's pointless him having his own, because I wouldn't have enough content. But I'm just Trish Widley on Instagram or Facebook. So you can, if you want to see Ronnie, the handsome boy that he is, feel free to come and have a look.
Yeah, lovely. So I will put your Instagram handle in the show notes as well, so anyone can, follow along the journey. Maybe we'll see some bowls popping up in the future.
That's the challenge. Once I start making them,
yeah.
Wait and see.
Well, I've really enjoyed that conversation, because I do think it's good to talk about the frustrations that we experience as pet parents, and the frustrations that you feel, and these constant conversations you have with yourself in your own mind, and your self-doubt and your anxieties, and it's ultimately that lack of confidence. And that is one of the things that I want to change with for pet parents with regards to their dog's nutrition, because from where I sit, I can give you the tools to help you build your bowl with confidence. And once you learn how, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner, because it is so simple when you follow just a simple set, a simple method. So I'm glad we explored this topic, because I do genuinely think there are more people sat at home having these constant battles within their own minds every single day than what you think or what you care to realize. I just don't think you're on your own with this at all. I mean, I do it. I've got, I like to think I've got my dog's diet figured out, and we follow the same method every time, and I still have conversations like that. It's just, it's just natural. So I'm glad you did bring this. I'm glad you brought this topic with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed being on the podcast. And if you ever decide you want to come back, if you make some great revelations in your fresh feeding journey, I will always be happy to have you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
No problem, Trish. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another great episode of the My Dog Made Me Do It Naturally podcast. Don't forget to check out the caption for any links discussed here today. And please, if you enjoyed the show, follow along and listen for free on your favourite podcast app. If you have any questions or would like to share your story, feel free to email me at mydogmademedoitnaturally@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Purpose of this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and should not be substituted as advice from a veterinarian or other professional. It does not form a client relationship with me, the host, or any guest speakers, and any information is not intended to and does not diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. My guests express our own views, thoughts, and opinions as individuals, and the podcast neither endorses or opposes the views, products, or services discussed here. If your pet is ill, always seek advice from your veterinarian. I am not a veterinarian, and I do not treat disease or offer medical advice.